Hi, everyone. We are here today to talk about the Panama Canal and Wilson's moral diplomacy. Don't get this confused. Wilson had nothing to do with the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal was a perfect example of Teddy Roosevelt's big stick policy. So, we're going to talk about that and then we're going to jump into how President Wilson's going to change the script whenever he takes over. All right, so your objectives for this set of notes are telling me what the consequences of American imperialism were, and being able to describe the differences by the time this is over between big stick policy, dollar diplomacy, and Wilson's moral diplomacy. All right, so first and foremost is where is the Panama Canal? What is it? Now, the Panama Canal is a strategic waterway right here. Okay, it comes down across the isthmus between North and South America. Panama Canal is the only body of water that is connecting the Caribbean Sea to the Pacific Ocean. And it is entirely man made. So it is a strategic waterway that ends up cutting off about 8,000 miles from the journey between New York City and San Francisco. So before, you'd have to come all the way down and around South America and then up to San Francisco. And now you can do that. So, guys, this cuts weeks and weeks off this journey. Now, the idea of building this canal, this is not brand new. This is not something that people are just figuring out, hey, it would be nice if we didn't have to go around South America. What this does, or what makes this possible, are the failures of the people before. We know what to expect, right? So the idea started in the 1850s, and there's a couple different places in Panama they were looking for, and the British and the United States both decided would work together and we get this done. But no actual construction starts. It just doesn't happen. And for the reason for that is the first big problem is there was no large scale earth moving equipment available at the time. If you know anything at all about Panama, it's very swampy. So it's hard to dig fast enough to clear the earth without the swamp pulling in, mudslides and filling it back up again. So that was an issue. In the late 1800s, a French company actually decided they were going to create a Panama Canal, and they gave up after 10 years for the first reason we just mentioned, and again for the second reason, which is diseases. Malaria, typhoid, yellow fever, you name it. It's just running rampant. If it can be carried by a mosquito, people had it. Now, 1903 rolls around, and the United States is going to try to do this because now we have the solutions to those two problems. The first solution is the steam shovel. Think of it like a really old version of a bulldozer. Okay. And the second thing is Dr. Walter Reed just proved the mosquito hypothesis. So we know mosquitoes are the ones spreading the diseases. So we are able to take precautions, kill the mosquitoes, use mosquito netting, that type of stuff. Okay, so in 1903, the United States buys the project from France, right? We buy the rights to any canal that gets built, and we start building, and we will finish the project 10 years later, 1913, right before World War I starts. All right, so America is going to create a country, and our payment for creating a country is the canal. And it's a really long and convoluted story, but here it goes. Panama was actually a colony of another South American country. Panama was a colony of Colombia. Okay. And Panama did not want to be a colony. It wanted to be independent. We didn't so much care about that. We went to Colombia and asked for Colombia if we would pay them, if they would let us have the rights to building the Panama Canal. So they said yes, and then we started negotiating with our Secretary of State, John Hay, and then Colombia kept trying to jack up the price. They kept trying to charge us more, and we just get mad and we say, no, we're not doing this, and we leave. When that happens, the United States finds a way around Colombia, right? Panama wants to be independent. So if Panama is independent, we don't have to deal with Colombia to get the canal anymore. So the U.S. Teddy Roosevelt sends in the U.S. Navy, the Great White Fleet. It's time to use the big stick, right? So they send in the Great White Fleet to Panama, and there are U.S. warships in the waters around Panama. And the next day, Panama declares its independence. So we're there, we're protecting Panama. Panama declares independence, and a civil war has started. Colombia tries to get to Panama to shut down this rebellion, but the U.S. warships are in the way. So we kind of block Colombia from getting to Panama. And this civil war is going to go very, very quickly because one side can't show up to fight it. So we declare Panama an independent country so that we can deal with it. Right. So this is before the war is over. We declare Panama as independent. We recognize it as an independent country. We send in John Hay again. Okay. And John Hay is going to give Panama the exact same deal Colombia had turned down because it wasn't enough money. And Panama signs it. Sure, they're happy they're an independent country. So we get a canal, but from helping Panama becoming a republic. So I want to show you this cartoon because I just love it. So you have Teddy Roosevelt here, right, and his hunting gear, and you've got this little baby bird. Okay, the little baby bird of Panama just hatched. It's a brand new country. Of course, they had to break Colombia to become, a country. And then you have intrigue. The French Canal Company stockholders. Those are the people we bought the rights to the canal from, right? So they're unhappy that they're not going to make all this money. And we now have the United States has the rights to canal. This is the treaty that gives us the canal rights, the Hay-Brunel-Varilla Treaty. This gives us the rights to the canal zone in perpetuity. Perpetuity means forever. So according to this, we have the right to the canal zone forever. We never have to give it back. We did, but we didn't do that until 2000. So it was ours for a very long time. Okay. So here's the thing. Roosevelt didn't ask for permission to send the military down there. He just did it. And the way the Constitution works is the president negotiates treaties and he signs them, but Senate has to approve it. So we have this Hay-Brunel-Varilla Treaty that's just giving us the Panama Canal. And it has to go through Congress and it has to be approved. And there are anti-expansionists in Congress that do not want to approve this. They are fighting this. So while Congress is fighting amongst itself, trying to decide if they're going to accept this treaty, Roosevelt just sends workers down to Panama to start getting started. And they start scoping out the best site for the canal and doing preliminary work on it. His quote here was, "I took the canal zone and let Congress debate, and while the debate goes on, the canal does also." Okay, so while they're sitting there fighting amongst themselves, I'm going to go ahead and do what needs to get done because they're going to come out of it on my way anyway. Okay, and they did. Congress did approve it. I mean, what are you going to do? Say stop doing that thing you've already started doing? It's not going to make sense. Okay, when you look at the costs of the canal, more than 35,000 workers are going to help dig the canal. Most of these are Panamanian citizens. Okay, we're not sending American citizens down there to do the grunt work and do the actual construction. Of those 35,000, more than 5,000 died from either disease or accident. Just because we know what's causing the diseases doesn't mean we can prevent mosquitoes entirely. And just because we have the equipment able to build the canal doesn't mean it's safe. Okay. The U.S. paid Panama $10 million for the canal zone. It was a strip of land where the canal would be, and then 10 miles on either side of that strip. So like my brother, whenever he was going through ranger training and he did his jungle training in Panama because it was an American land. so they could do a lot of their training there. Um, and every year we had to pay Panama a rent for that canal zone of $250,000, which sounds like a lot back then, but I mean, we made $1 million in the first 3 years this thing was open. So like we made our money back really, really quickly. Um, Now Colombia eventually will get $25 million as an indemnity, indemnity, indemnity to smooth things over, but they don't get that till after World War One. Colombia is never going to accept that we took Panama away from it, or that we allowed Panama to become independent without its permission. So they are constantly declaring or demanding that we pay them for their loss. We pay them an indemnity for the loss of Panama. And Roosevelt's not going to do that, right? Roosevelt doesn't think he's done anything wrong, so he's not going to pay an indemnity, which is a payment for loss or damage you caused somebody. After World War One, America is just so sick of the rest of the world. We don't want to deal with them. So we pay basically Colombia just to shut Colombia up. Like, here's money, go away now. After Roosevelt and Taft leave office, remember there was that election where Roosevelt and Taft split the vote, and Wilson takes over. And now Wilson takes over. He's going to completely change sort of how this works. Okay, Wilson, before he became president and a politician, he was president of a college. So he is very much more. He was more analytical about things. He was logical. He was thoughtful. He liked the letter of the law. He was also a very religious man. So the kind of stepping on toes that Teddy Roosevelt and Taft had done, Wilson really doesn't appreciate that. So Wilson was determined to change the way we reacted to other countries. And he promised to never again seek one additional foot of territory by conquest. He promised to promote human rights, national integrity, and opportunity in every country he comes available to. This is a quote from him. We must observe Latin America's friends, prove ourselves Latin America's friends and champions upon terms of equality and honor. We must show ourselves friends by comprehending their interest, whether it squares with our own interests or not. Comprehension must be the soil in which shall grow all the fruits of friendship. I mean, the development of the constitutional liberty in the world. So what he's saying here is it can't all be about us. We have to see where Latin America is coming from and what they need, and we have to kind of approach them on a fair basis. We're going to get a little bit of what we want. You're going to get a little bit of what you want. And that's how you would build the relationships with Latin America that would help spread democracy that way. All right, that's everybody. Make sure you get your notes done and you are ready to discuss these notes in class.